appreciate everybody jumping on real quick. And this, what I want to do is kind of just take a half hour, 45 minutes just to kind of just share one little process here with you. I want to start doing this, as I said earlier, kind of once a month, kind of getting together on the topics. And what I'm going to talk about here is we're going to talk about the purchase timeline process. So like when you have a building, an apartment building under contract, or wanting to go and purchase a property, I'm going to walk you through this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it step by step here real quick, and show you the different steps in the process. So the first step would be when you're looking at a property. Let's say you get something off of LoopNet or CBRE, Richard, whatever.
Sorry to interrupt, Pat. Can you record it for?
Yes, I am recording it right now.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
No problem. Good suggestion. So basically, you should visit the site or visit the area, or in like if you're investing in Michigan, obviously take the time to drive past it, or meet the seller or broker at the site. What that does is kind of builds, one, credibility, and two, you look at actually what you're looking at putting a property, a purchase agreement on. Now, what I've done here is kind of, this is if you're going to fly, if you're going to, if it's out of state, you can kind of, it's a rough estimate about like $1,500, but let's assume that you're in Michigan. So you want to visit, drive by it, or meet the broker there, or meet the seller there. And I typically do that, one, to build credibility, but also two, to kind of let them talk, because they're people who own buildings. Typically they're very proud of it, so they'll start talking to you, and you'll gather more information, and you're kind of doing your due diligence, kind of doing your recon on the site visit. And it may be something simple questions, or something you see that you wouldn't have seen if you didn't visit the site. So that'd be the first thing when you're, let's say that you've called a seller, or a seller's called you, or you've got an OM from a broker, is, okay, where is this property? Drive by it. And then that'd be the first step I would say to do. Now the second step is if that looks good, and you've gotten the OM, and you've gotten the trailing 12, and you've gotten the rent rolls, and gotten the information from the seller, now you may have to take a couple trips out there. And again, I try to do that and build up rapport. Well, I'll just meet you at the park, or I'll just meet you at the apartment. That way, kind of, there's a common place, but you're meeting him where, in the buildings, you get a different, look at it. Oh, just meet me in the back or the side or whatever. So once you get the information, and your LOI is the first step. In commercial real estate, we use LOIs, or letter of intent. We don't go right straight into a PA, and I'll kind of explain why we do that. So and the LOI is basically just an outline of what the purchase and sales agreement is going to include. All right. Now I've got some boxes here. Now, depending on where it is you engage your contract lawyer. You can do a couple different phases. I got an LOI template from my attorney many years ago, so I just use that. So I just tweak it here and there. So I don't typically use an attorney each time, but I would definitely, advise you to go and talk with an attorney, get something from him or get something from her, and use that. You don't have to use it each time, but again, I kind of have to disclaimer here. Please follow, rules. But at that point, when you turn in your LOI, meaning when you submit it to the seller, you would then alert your lender. Typically, you're talking to your lender before that to kind of get an idea of what you're going to put down. If you're going to go and get a mortgage, so you'd be talking to your lender, obviously the lawyer as well too, and then also your management company. If you're going to have somebody manage it, or you're going to do it yourself, and again, these are just suggestions. So what I'm trying to do is kind of just walk you through kind of the little bit of the process of how to do it, and we can dive in deep, in the meetup on any questions that we have. But so that's the first couple steps there. So the LOI kind of is an outline. basically, hey, listen, we're gonna buy this property for $2 million. We're gonna do it seller financing, and you're going to, give us a 4% interest rate and 5-year balloon. And what that does, and the reason in commercial we do this, is because so many things can change, and it costs so much money to go into a purchase and a sale or a PA. You're testing the waters here. So when you visited the site and talked with the seller on the phone or on site, you're putting together what you've talked about when you're talking to him. When he said, oh yeah, I'll do seller finance, or I do this. So you put it all together, and so he can see it on one page. And typically an LOI, depending on the size of the property, is usually 2 pages, right? So it's not very long, but the meat of it is on the first page, saying here's what we're buying, here's our, in the middle of the first page is here's our financing. Typically, I give 3 different, seller financing, a cash offer, and one with financing. So, and it depends on what we talked about. So I would emphasize one over the other, that way. So that's why we do an LOI, because it's you're kind of negotiating back and forth a little bit with the seller at that point in the process. Let me stop here real quick. Anybody have any questions about anything that I've said so far?
Is LOI always required, or we can go directly to purchase agreement also?
You in commercial, typically you do LOI. Now, again, you can go straight to a purchase and sales agreement if that is what the seller, and you guys, have come eyeball to eyeball and you've shaken on things. You can, by all means, do that. But typically, it's the LOI first, because unless you know the person very well, that's where you kind of wash things out. But
Sure.
you can. To answer your question, yes, you can. You can jump from meeting him or her, and then right into a purchase agreement.
Sure.
Yes, definitely. Good question. Okay, so let's continue here. So now the next part of this, and I've broken it up here, then we jump into the purchase and sales agreement. Now, the time from the LOI to the purchase and sales agreement, it can vary. Okay, typically it's 2 to 3 weeks, again, depending on the size of the property, what you're negotiating. You may, shoot over seller financing, and well, he talked to his wife, and wow, he really doesn't want to do that. Now, can we do a purchase? Okay, so it's kind of a back and forth kind of thing there. Now, I've seen it where you can, go from LOI and 2 days later you're at the PA. I mean, it just depends. Again, so the purchase and sales agreement, now or the contract or PA, that's when everything starts really happening, right? That's where you put kind of stuff. You've already talked to your lender, you got a loan quote, you know what you're going to go for. Everything's solid, as solid as it can be at this point before you get into your due diligence, meaning that you have your loan, your broker knows, your insurance quotes are there, your loan quotes are there, the closing cost, you're really solid, getting that, number really solid. And the only thing that will change is what you find in the next box or the due diligence area. That's the only thing that would really change those numbers in any drastic amount. Meaning, if you didn't know or nobody told you that it's in a floodplain, or it's, the roof is, they've been covering up moisture damage and stuff like that, that's the only thing that would change. So in this purchase and sales agreement, again, you would engage an attorney to make sure you're covered on all the different angles of the PA. And again, depending on the size of the parcel that you're going to buy, it could be 5 pages, 6 pages, whatever. So there's no real like standard, length of that. But at that point there, you would have typically 30 days to do your due diligence. And typically, meaning that you've put in a purchase and sales agreement and both you guys sign it, then that begins your due diligence period. Now, what you also put in your purchase and sales agreement is all documents relating to the purchase. So, and I misspoke. When you sign the PA, that doesn't start your your due diligence period. When you receive all the documents that you've requested from the seller, that's when your 30-day or 60-day or 90-day due diligence really starts. And that's why you need an attorney to craft that kind of verbiage in there, because you don't want to start doing your due diligence and not having all the contracts for the snow removal, the waste treatment, or the trash removal, or all the contracts for the cable. You want to put that in your PA that my due diligence period will start when I have all the paperwork from you, Mr. Seller. I've requested bank statements. I've requested, contracts for cable, for waste management, all the different things, and then my due diligence period starts, because you got a financial due diligence you're going to be doing, and also a on-site physical due diligence. Okay, so one is you're digging into the papers, you're digging into the leases, you're going to have your property manager go lease by lease by lease, see when they expire, where all the security deposits are, and then the other side, you're going to be having a team of people in every unit going through each unit, making a tick mark. Okay, we got 20 units, 30 units, and okay, we got 5 of them that are, totally inhabitable, or, we got 2 that are not, or 1 we need an AC, this. So you're going to have doing that simultaneously. You may think that 30 business days is a lot. When you've got to do that much work, that's where you need your team in place to go do that kind of stuff. Okay, so in that whole thing, then the earnest deposit would be put up in there. You'd be having due diligence fees. So third-party people, you'd be paying plumbers, electricians, depending on what kind of agreement you have with your property manager, you may have to pay for that. But again, what you're looking for in the due diligence period is a reason to not do the deal. That's your sole objective. So if anything, and I'll give you a copy of this document here too. So right on there, that's the whole point of the due diligence period is find out why you won't do the deal. You want to find those, ACs that are not working. You want to find all the different things going wrong with the property and, the insects or whatever it is. That's what your job is when you're doing due diligence. Because once you say, yep, I'm done with due diligence and I accept this, guess what? It's now yours because you're going to closing, right? So that's what you need to understand is the due diligence periods. That's why you're going to spend maybe money on a phase 1 environmental. You may have to get a survey if the owner doesn't have another survey. So you're going to need, like I say up here, 10 to 15 grand. And now that is money that you're going to raise from your private investors, okay? Or you have that money in your partnership or from you, and then you get reimbursed that money at closing. So you're never really out this money. So don't think that but you can use that money from your private investors to do that, and you get paid back. Okay. Okay. So the next slide here. So we open bank accounts as well, because now we're having to move this property to the next stage, right? So typically there's 5 kind of a bank accounts that you're going to need to run a property. Now, again, this is for an apartment, and it can vary. The reason I say that there's 5 is you don't want just one account for all the money. Okay, because you're going to, as you can see here, there's several different accounts that you're going to be using to pay your investors, to pay earnest money, to pay taxes. You want these separated. So the first account would be the operations account. That's general operation money, right? That's to run the property. The next one is the owner distribution account. That's where your monthly funds to pay things would come into. Again, this would come on cash flow, and that would come out of the cash flow and go right into that. So you're not commingling funds. It's always a good idea. And again, this is just a suggestion to do it, that you can set it up any way you want to, but I'm just, from kind of experience, this is kind of, it works, because then okay, this checkbook is for this checkbook is that. number 3 here, the deposits and earnest money account. That way you can then, if you put that money up, well, then you can go with that receipt and that check and say, okay, here's the earnest money I put up, here's the account, and it's a clean transaction. Because you got to understand, folks, is unless you're doing this with your own money, I'm assuming that you're going to be having private investors or other people's money. So you have to be even more careful with people's money. And even though you may do this with your checking account at home, you're now dealing with other people's money. So that you want to make sure that you can, draw point A to point B. Okay. And then the 4th one is the self escrow accounts for your taxes and your insurance. Now that for the taxes, the bank is going to require you to do that. They're probably going to keep an account. So they're going to probably do that for you or request you to do that, because they're going to want the taxes escrowed along with your CapEx as well. So if you already know that going into it, that's going to make you look even more professional toward the bankers, because they're going to keep those funds separately. They're going to want to know where they're at. Again, going to organization. And then the 5th one is for your CapEx expenses as well. So that's just a generic, kind of 5 different accounts you're going to have. And again, you don't have to set this up until, like I said, in this stage here, when you have a purchase contract that you're getting ready to sign and getting close. It's just one of these steps that you do in the process to do that. Any questions about what I talked about so far? And I hope I'm not going too fast.
What is this PPM started? Get PPM started.
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. The PPM, that's the private placement memorandum. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I missed that. That's where you're going to engage a securities lawyer and get your private placement memorandum started. That is the document you're going to use and give to your investors who are invested or are wanting to invest with you. Now, the PPM is a document, and again, depending on the size of the property, it is everything that could ever go wrong with an investment. It's basically, it's a document made to scare them. Okay, that's for lack of a better word. The lawyer's gone in there and say you're going to lose your principal, you're going to use your balance, you're going to do this happened, this happened. It's telling everything that could possibly go wrong with this investment. You have to have that kind of disclaimer, because if you don't, then if something happens, they can come back and sue you. So that's constructed by an attorney, and usually a real estate attorney that does syndication, or a securities attorney. And like I said, it's a pretty good sized document, but that's kind of the fine print. Let's say if you're buying stocks, that fine print that you can use your principal balance, yada, 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 then that's what that is. And you would give that to your private investors, and you would tell them, hey, listen, here's the offering that here's what I'm going to offer you. I'm going to offer you, 8% return and 8% preferred, and overall 20% return. And oh, by the way, here's the PPM. And they have to sign the PPM. They'll have to sign that and give that back to you and your lawyer, so that they understand that this is a security, this is a financial tool that they could lose their money on. So that was a great question. And again, you'll create the LLCs as well. You'll create an LLC for the property itself. So don't create LLCs beforehand, because the bank will want a clean, brand new LLC the date of closing. They typically create the LLC, and that your attorney will do that for you, because when you create an entity, they want it fresh that day, so there's no liens on it. It's typically in the name of the property, just like you do possibly maybe in your residential. It'd be Main Street ABC LLC. So they'll create that. They'll create an operating account as well. So that's where you'd run your A and B kind of shares out of that as well. That was a good question. Okay, so now once we've got this, and now we're in the due diligence, we're going through the due diligence where everything is going good, right?
One more question.
Go right ahead.
Do you know how much this PPM document costs?
Well, it ranges. It's probably from $25,000 to $50,000,
Thank you.
and it just depends on the size of the deal, the hair in the deal, because there's typically a template they use. Okay, here's the PPM, and we have to include 1 through 35. Okay, oh, now this one's in a flood zone or in an area of town. Okay, I got to add these 5 other ones. So that's typically what it'll cost you. Yeah, that's a good plan to have as far as money wise. You may possibly get it cheaper, but again, you want to make sure that the attorney that's drafting that is drafted before, so you're covered. But
Yeah,
that's a
that's
great
what I
question.
heard. Then
Yeah.
I thought maybe I'm mistaken. I heard around 25 to 50,000.
Yeah, it just depends on what's they're all over the place really, but it's I'd rather shoot you high than tell you it's going to be $2,000, and you're never going to get anything for that. I mean, that's it won't. It just
Yeah,
really
but it
won't.
just covers your hindsight.
Yeah, it covers a lot of stuff, but again, it is required if you're going to go raise money from private individuals. Now, let me see here. If you're not gonna be doing, you know, a true syndication, and you're gonna do a joint venture with people, okay,
Like
which
a
is
partnership.
different. Now you wouldn't have to have the PPM, okay. And I probably should have prefaced that. I'm assuming here that you do a syndication, meaning you'd go and talk to people and bring them their money in. And that's a syndication. So if you're going to do a joint venture with family and friends, no, you wouldn't have to do the PPM, okay? But you should have something, maybe even a little something stating, okay, ma, pa, aunt, uncle, here's what the lawyer drew up. This is what can happen, because again, you are looked at as the expert, whether you've done 1 deal, 2 deals, 0 deals, compared to a lay person that doesn't know this business. So you should have something saying, hey, listen, this is what we're looking at happening, and that's what the opportunity package tells them. But you also just have to say, hey, listen, if stuff goes sideways, and it can go sideways, here's what we're going to do. Here's what can go sideways. The bank can do this, or we can run into this. But again, that's kind of in your opportunity package as well. But I would have something and explain, either face to face or have them sign something that you explain the downside of this investment, because I can tell you from experience, they're not going to remember unless you bring it up that they signed something that you told them they could lose principal, or they could, if we have to hold back a payment because damaged during weather, you're going to get it the next following month. Just cover your butt, because when things are going great, everybody forgets anything, right? When things go bad, they remember every little thing you said. And if you don't, tell them, and you're not scaring them, you're just being realistic with them, because it could happen, right? It could, you could have a fire that is no fault of your own, and you may have to displace people. Well, then all of a sudden now you can't make your distributions to your investors, and Aunt Mary's looking for that check, and you're trying to do everything you can, just cover yourself. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so now what we've done is we're coming to the end, and I appreciate you guys sticking with me here. The hard red line is, now we're done with the due diligence, right? We've come to the last day. We've had our last extension. We have a real good feel for what this is. You can still back out, but you're going to lose money. But like like I've said, and I've people have done, it's better to lose a little bit of money than to live with something that you can't do. But by this time here, there really shouldn't be any surprises that they're not going to have this deal go through. Okay. Now, you may get some stuff thrown for you from financially, the bank's not going to do as much, or the interest rate change, something like that. That's not really, let's say, a drop the deal kind of thing. I'm talking finding out, there's, 40 dead bodies in the courtyard. You've already found all that kind of stuff, right? The skeletons are all things. So that hard line is right there. By that time, then everything goes hard, means your earnest money and your deposit goes hard. And again, that's spelled out in the PA and also the LOI. You try to get as less money down as possible. There may be a thing where if you want to extend your due diligence period, you release, 5,000 or 2,000 or whatever it is. And again, depending on the deal. So each deal is specific, right? You ask for 60, 90 days. If you want another 30 days, you release some funds that are non-refundable. But once you cross that line, your money goes hard, your earnest money goes hard, you're going to closing. Okay, so then the close, right? So you get into the close, all the money's, start pulling together. You should be getting all the money from the investors into your bank account and funding that thing. So from that red line, or maybe a couple days before that red line, somebody is goodness gracious, somebody is making sure that the money from all the investors is in the account. So when you go to the closing table, you can wire that money from the lawyer's account to the closing table, and you can close. So it's kind of a scramble. So you're doing the property side, but you're also doing the money side. And again, this is if you're syndicating. This is if you're getting money from other people. Even if you're getting from family members, double check, triple check, make sure it's in there, because I can guarantee you, Aunt Helen's going to transpose a zero and it's not going to get there. And, you're sitting at the closing table and wondering what's going on. So you're doing a lot of different things. And then you close. Then bingo, you should close, if you can, close closer to the beginning of the month. Why? So you can obtain the rents for that month. Okay. Now you try to work it that way, and sometimes it doesn't happen, but that's just a kind of a little trick you do to get it in there. And then you'll get all those rents as well as the security deposits as well. And you now own the property. So that's the process. Anybody have any questions?
So
about
if the closing is right in the middle of the month, so you get half of the month's rent?
Yeah, you try to close before the 15th, so you capture because remember, the rent's due on the 1st, it's late on the 5th, right? So if you close before that, you obtain those rents, not the seller. So try your darndest to close after the 30th to like the 5th or 6th, so you capture all that money.
But
That makes sense?
Yeah, but if the closing is right in the middle of the month?
Yeah, they just prorate it.
Prorate.
Yeah, I mean, they're just like they do with resident, they'll just prorate it. But yeah, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you shoot for that. And again, these are just kind of little rules of thumb that you can shoot for. Try that. And what they do, they'll just prorate it. But it's always better if it's already coming into the seller's account, he just cuts you a check from there instead of having to go back after closing and waiting for him with the check. It just, sometimes you have to, but if you can do it that way, it's a good way to do it. Just real quick and easy. And again, everything I've talked about, there's idiosyncrasies or little things, but I wanted to share this with you to give you an idea of the process that you're going to go through in this. Now, again, like somebody said, yeah, you don't have to do the LOI stage, right? You can go right into a PA. But typically in commercial, you do an LOI to get a feeling for what you're looking at, make sure he understands the seller. Again, any one of these things you can change But please, if you're doing this, definitely engage a lawyer, definitely engage, a title company, a property manager, so you can go through these steps less pain than if you're trying to do it all yourself. And depending on the size of the deal, some of this stuff you're going to have a team, because you can't be auditing the leases and walking every unit, right? I mean, there's just too much to do. Was this helpful? Did you guys understand?
Yes.
Any
I have another
questions?
question. I have
Great.
another question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Hey, go ahead. Go right ahead with the questions.
Yeah, this is Dominic here.
Hey, Dominic, how you doing?
Good. How are you? So the question is, during closing, the security deposit is clean because we know how much they have it, and during closing, you can use that number and deduct it. But what happens to the accounts receivable and accounts payable that's already pending on the account for that property? How does it handle? Is it during closing? During closing, you don't see the books, right? How does it
Well,
handle?
no, you would see the books during the due diligence. So you would either agree with the seller in some fashion. If it's a lot of money, you either say, okay, at closing, write me a check, and then we'll see what comes in, and then the title company to reimburse. Always have a third party, like a title company or a lawyer, handle those kind of funds. So to answer your question, if it's a big amount and the seller thinks that it's going to come in before you close, then you say, okay, great, we'll put that in the PA, that you just get over to the lawyer and get the money over to them, and then either the seller would pay that ahead. Let's say the account the balance is, let's say, $10,000. Let's just be a fee. He would pay $10,000 more at closing, and then the title company would wait and get the bills from the seller and then release the funds back to the seller. See what I'm saying is you use the title company or a lawyer, typically the title company, to say, okay, we've got accounts payable of $10,000 and your security deposits and stuff like that. They would just take that and pay that into the seller, would pay that into the title company. None of the money would be released until the seller comes in and says, okay, I just got 8,000 of that 10,000 in, here it is, and then you do it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
the only question is, during due diligence, they don't open their books, right? The seller
yes.
will not open their books, right?
Yes, you should be seeing their books. You should be seeing their bank accounts. And if you're not seeing that, then due diligence hasn't really started. So during the due diligence, you request, and there's a list of stuff you request: bank statements for the last 2 years, everything, deposit slips, everything. So you are getting everything. Now, if you're not, then obviously that's the problem, because you have to see that. Because once they sell the property, because there's no sense of, let's say, privacy, right? It's not your personal account where after you sell this, they're going to keep it. When they sell this property, that bank account's going to be closed. Right. So there should be no reason for them, it's my, now if they're keeping it in their personal, shame on them, but you need to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, always request that, and there's a list. We can talk about that next week, of the list of stuff that you request. You request that stuff, and again, going to that 30 business day loop underneath there, your time doesn't start until you get all the requested documentation, because you're buying this property on $1 million on this year. They're saying it's producing 200,000 in income. Great, prove it to me. And they have to prove that. And that's what the due diligence part of the process is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
What happens to the account receivable if, let's say, 1 month rent was not received from 3 tenants, and how does that handle?
You would have to agree some way with the seller. Either he cuts you a check, or you just wait, or you contact the tenant and have them pay you directly. That's something you'd have to negotiate. And again, typically it's only one or two, so typically it's not, but if it's like a sizable amount, then that would have to be a point of contention at the closing, saying, okay, we've got 20 people that aren't paying their rent. Either we get a credit, right? Or, Mr. Seller, you're going to cut me a check. And I've seen it done both ways.
Okay.
Typically it's not that much, and you've already have talked to them about that. So hopefully at that time, obviously at the closing table, that's not going to be a huge issue. But again, those are the kind of things you still need to keep, marching from due diligence or over that red line. If you see that's going to be an issue, yeah, that needs to be something saying, hey, okay, hang on, Mr. Lawyer, we need to talk about it. We're missing 10 grand here. He's not giving me an answer to my satisfaction. Yes, then you can stop the process.
Okay. Sounds good.
Those are great questions, Dominic. That's good. And again, that's why it's definitely recommendable have an attorney, a real estate attorney with you, team members that can answer these questions and help you get this information. Because sometimes you may not, you try to get friendly with the seller, but you don't know their state of mind, and you always want to have that third party, to refer to. Hey, it's not me, it's the title company. It's not me, it's my lawyer. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of, hey, we're on the same tee. You want to sell? I want to buy. But geez, I got to know what this thing brings in. The old bank. But that's a good question. Awesome. Any other questions?
So some people suggest T12. You're saying 24. So is it better going 24 months?
Well, T12 is up here in the LOI stage. Okay, so you can get an idea of what the property's working. Now, when you get into the due diligence stuff, you're going to see all the books. So the T12 and the rent roll is typically done for the LOI stage. Now, if the guy or person can give you more than T12, by all means, right? But typically the minimum that you're going to do for an LOI is a T12 and rent rolls, current rent rolls. That's what you're going to structure your LOI on. Now, when you go do due diligence, you're going to see all the bank accounts for as long as they own the property, all the way back. And that's why you have to have a team in there to do that. That make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate these questions, guys and gals. Appreciate it. Okay. Is there anything else that I can answer? And remember, next week, Wednesday, is our mastermind. So I hope to see you guys there. We're in a new room, new building. We're in the Forum building. That's in Central Campus at 6:30. I know it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I hope to see you guys and gals there. And if you found this, helpful, if you have topics for other webinars, please let me know. Because I want to start doing these, before once a month at least, just to get more information out there, to get some, good information out there, so you guys can start making some offers. Is anybody making offers out there anywhere?
No.
Not yet. Oh my goodness. See, that's why I got to keep
just
doing
sold
these.
my property.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
There's an office building.
Awesome. Okay, good. That's
hey, Pat,
great.
I don't have your email address. I have not met you personally.
Okay.
Something that
I can give you my email address. Actually, I can give it to you. It's Pat, P-A-T, at opportunitycreator.com. And man, you are that's good. Let me do that here. So it's Pat at Opportunity Creator. I'm kind of bad at self publicity. I apologize. It's Pat at opportunitycreator.com, and that's the website as well. But yeah, email me.
Sure.
Love to see you at the mastermind next week. It's for a third Wednesday of every month.
Unfortunately, this Wednesday I'm traveling.
That's okay. That's no problem. That's why I'm going to be doing these webinars here.
Sure.
But definitely email me. Let me know. And then again, I wanted to keep this short and sweet. Unless anybody's got any questions, this is going to be recorded. I'm going to put it on my YouTube page, and I will send out a link through the meetup of where it will be so you guys can view it again as well. But listen, thank you very much for your attention and your time on a Wednesday evening here. I
One more
appreciate
thing,
the input.
you said, Pat, you're going to give us the slideshow?
Yes, I can give you the slideshow as well as the video.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yep,
you.
I can put that. In fact, I can put it in the Dropbox and I can get it to you. So I can definitely do that. So I'll send that link out probably tomorrow morning, and it'll be on the YouTube as well. But thank you for participating. They're good questions, and
when you say next Wednesday, if you put the date also, that will help a lot.
Oh, that's right.
Because I get mixed up sometimes. There you go.
See, you guys are gonna make me. You guys are gonna make me do this stuff right, aren't you? This is good, though. I appreciate that. I do. Again, thank you very much for that, because again, I put this together and I know when it is. Well, yeah, you're right. So it's next Wednesday, the 27th, 6:30, and again, we're in a different building. There's a map on the meetup. It's a little bit bigger room, but we'd love to see you guys there and gals. If that's it, I'm going to let you go because I'm going to give you back 15 minutes because I said I was going to take you only 45 minutes. But unless you guys have any other questions, I'm going to let you guys go.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Pat.
Bye-bye.
Bye.